Okay, in this video we're going to look at installing and using the export routine in Power Project to the US Army Corps of Engineers SDEF format. So this is an add-on that's been written for ASTA to enable files data to be passed to the core for use. So the first thing we need to look at is how to install the macro. And you'll have a file called SDEF export.vba, and we need to copy that, or you need to copy that into the C program files ASTA Power Project add-ins folder where ASTA is installed. So on my machine it's C program files x86 ASTA Power Project add-ins, and I've copied that file that you've been given into that directory. So the next thing you need to do is to start up ASTA. I've opened a project up here, but we'll come on to that in a second. And we're going to put a tool button on now to run the export. So like you configure Excel, for example, I'm going to right click up here and customize. And I'm going to customize the ribbon. And I want to put my button into the project data tab. So I'm going to find macros, and you can see here I've got mod sdf.create SDF. Select that, and I'm going to click on add into the data section there. So that's created for me a button. I'm just going to change the name to create SDF, and I could change the icon if I had one. So we'll click OK, and now hopefully in the project tab we have a create SDF button that we're going to use for the export. So the first thing we're going to do is to create a project. Before that, I just wanted to show you a couple of setup items. The first thing is the code libraries or the activity codes we create for the required SDEF export, such as work area, bid item, category of work, feature of work, and these are done as code libraries in ASTA. So I've created 8 different code libraries, and each of them have some items within them: area 1, area 2, bid item, etc. These can be called whatever you want them to be called, and can contain whatever items you want, and we link those up later on. So the workers per day, for example, responsibility, phase, and so on. And these are created like any normal code library in ASTA, where we type a name in there. We'll call that test, and then we go inside it to create the items, etc. But we only need those 8 items as required by the core, so I'll just delete those out there. And the other thing is to create a resource, because that can be used for the cost per day. Note in ASTA you can have fixed costs, but the SDEF export is designed where there's a non-lump sum item, so we use permanent resources in ASTA, and I've created a permanent resource called subcontractor costs. And what I need to do is to create a cost and income rate to say the amount that we spend each day on that subcontractor. So I'm going to create a cost and income rate called subcontractor cost, and I'm going to say that is £50 or $50 per hour. So going back to the resource now, what I'm going to do is to assign, so in cost and income tab, I'm going to assign the rate subcontractor cost. So every hour that the subcontractor is on, it's going to cost me $50. So we've got that now, and I'm going to create a very simple project. I'm going to have task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, and complete. put some durations in. We'll have what should we have? 18 days, 12 days, 12 days, 6 days, and a milestone. And we'll just link these together. And we'll just add this one in manually just to introduce a bit of float. And we'll reschedule the project so you can see we have the tasks in position, and we have some total float on this one here. And I'm just going to put that into a summary just so that we can see it's in phase 1. Perfect. So the next thing that we need to do is to assign the codes, the activity codes. So I shall only do that on one of these, but selecting an activity, going to task and codes, we're able to select the item. So area is area 1. Obviously these don't have to be completed according to the data that you've got, so we'll go through and put a few items in there. Hopefully you get the idea, and I can go on to the next task and do exactly the same thing, like so. We'll just save the data at this point. So the next thing that we can do is to assign a resource for the subcontractor costs, and we'll just do that on this item here. So I'm going to assign subcontractor costs, which I've done, and because the task is 3 weeks long and it's £50 an hour, that's told me that it's going to cost me £7,200 or dollars, and you can see here that's reflected by the amount. If I was to change the number of subcontractors, for example, to 2, the cost has increased. So I just undo that, the cost has increased. So that's in ASTA how we up the cost once we've got a fixed income and cost rate. So fundamentally now we've got our project up and running, and what we need to do really is to record the budgeted, the original durations and the costs into a baseline, so we can, because they're referred back to in the SDEF export. So we're going to create a baseline here, and we're going to call this the target baseline. I'll just do that quickly. So we've recorded that, and you can see we've got some original durations in our program. And at this point we can now do an export because we've got some data. So we'll go to the project ribbon tab here, and we'll click on create SDEF. So the first thing it asks me, has the project been rescheduled? Has it been recalculated? Because obviously we need that for accurate date positioning and total float calculations. Well, I did that earlier, so I do want to proceed. And now I'm going to give a path name for the file, and just put that in there. And we're going to go and put this in the sample section, and I'm going to call this export 1. So we'll save that. I can add some additional data here which will get saved in, the contractor name and the contract number if I wish. I won't set this at this point, but what I'm going to do now here is to marry up the code libraries, the activity codes, with the requirements of the SDEF. So workers per day is going to be workers, responsibility, work area, category of work, feature of work. So obviously these codes could have been called whatever you wanted, in fact, but we're linking up what the SDEF requires for our export. And now once we've done that, we're going to click on export to create our file. Tells me it's successful. This will report on any errors, such as actual starts being greater than the data date as stipulated by the SDEF, or negative lags. So we have created that, and I will now just look at that file, the one we created. That's in samples, and you can see now we have a fully complete and correct SDEF export. So we have our start dates, our durations, project start, project end, calendars set correctly telling us when and where we're not working, activities displayed with durations, the codes as necessary, our predecessors, our units. If you remember, that was 7,200, which is shown down here. So we've got our rate was £50 or $50 an hour, so that's 400 in total. So that gives me 18 per day. And then our items lined up here, our early starts, our late starts, our early finishes and our late finishes, and in this field here our float. So this is a fully functioning and compliant SDEF export file. So if we just look at this a little bit further, let's just put some progress on now, just to show you how that gets handled. So we'll make that one 100% complete, and we'll make that one 100% complete, and that one 50% complete, and we'll do our export again. So we'll call this export 2, and again we'll just have to match those up. And we'll do our export, and you can see here that we have now errors being thrown because I haven't moved the data date on, so it's telling me that actual start dates and actual finish dates are later than the report date. So we're going to have to fix that up. So I'm just going to make this export. So I'm just going to move my data date on to, let's keep it safe, let's go for the 31st of July. So now we'll just set the export off. So now that's successful. We'll go ahead and look at now at this export to see the differences. So we'll just open up export 2, and you can now see we have actuals in here, actual starts, actual finishes, actual start, actual finish, actual start, with a remaining duration of 3, because there's 3 days left on that particular activity. So everything is complete as per the SDEF requirements. So thank you very much for listening.